On a small, rocky island in the Aegean Sea, a man in exile began to record a series of visions that would become one of the most debated and studied texts in history. Welcome. Tonight, we will follow, step by step, what John experienced while he was exiled on the island of Patmos, and how those experiences were documented in what is now known as the Book of Revelation. This is not a symbolic overview or a poetic interpretation. We will move through the sequence as it is presented in the text, focusing on events, context, and what each moment led to. John was not there by choice. He had been exiled during a period of Roman authority, most likely under Emperor Domitian, at a time when allegiance to anything above the empire was treated as a threat. This matters because it places these visions in a real historical setting, under pressure, isolation, and uncertainty. He describes hearing a voice, turning to see its source, and from that moment forward, a sequence of visions begins that escalates in intensity and scope. We will begin with the circumstances that brought John to Patmos, then move into the first vision he records, followed by the messages directed to specific communities, and then the unfolding sequence of events that builds into a larger narrative. The central question guiding this journey is simple. How did these visions progress, and what exactly was described as happening next? Before we continue, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And as you listen, leave a comment, telling me where you are watching from and what time it is around also. Do you believe these visions describe events that are still in the future, or things that have already begun? Now, we begin with the setting and the reason John was on Patmos in the first place. At the end of the 1st century, the Roman Empire maintained strict control over its territories, and loyalty to the emperor was not only political, it was enforced as a public declaration. During the reign of Domitian, this expectation intensified. Refusing to participate in emperor worship was seen not just as religious disagreement, but as defiance against the authority of Rome. This context matters because it explains why individuals like John were removed from society and sent to isolated locations. John identifies himself in the text simply as a servant and witness. He states that he was on the island of Patmos because of the word of God and the testimony of Jesus. This indicates that his exile was directly connected to his public message. Patmos itself was not a place of comfort. It was a small, rocky island used by the Romans as a site for banishment. Life there would have been physically demanding and socially isolating, with limited resources and minimal contact with the outside world. This environment matters because it removes distraction and places John in a position of complete separation from normal life. At a certain point during this exile, John records that he was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. He does not describe this as sleep or imagination, but as a state in which perception changes and awareness is directed towards something beyond the physical surroundings. This distinction is important because what follows is presented not as reflection, but as direct experience. He then hears a loud voice behind him, described as being like a trumpet. The comparison suggests clarity, volume, and authority, something that demands immediate attention. The voice instructs him to write what he is about to see and to send it to 7 specific churches located in Asia. These were real communities in cities such as Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. This matters because the message is not abstract or generally misdirected, intentional, and meant to be delivered. Before John even sees the full sequence of visions, he is given a task to record and communicate. When John turns to see the source of the voice, he describes a scene that marks the beginning of everything that follows. He sees 7 golden lampstands, and in the midst of them, a figure like a son of man. The description is detailed and structured. A long robe reaching to the feet, a golden sash across the chest, hair described as white like wool, eyes like fire, feet like burnished bronze, and a voice like many waters. Each element is presented clearly, without interpretation, as observed features of what is in front of him. This moment matters because it establishes authority. The figure is not introduced gradually or symbolically, it is immediate and overwhelming. John's reaction confirms this. He falls to the ground as though dead, indicating that the experience is physically and mentally overpowering. There is no sense of control or detachment. The response is total. The figure then places a hand on him and speaks. The message begins with reassurance, "Do not be afraid," followed by identification. "I am the first and the last." This establishes both presence and authority over time itself. The figure continues, stating that he was dead and is now alive forever, and that he holds the keys of death and Hades. This matters because it defines the scope of what will follow. The visions are not random. They are presented under the authority of one who claims control over life, death, and what comes after. John is then given a clear instruction. Write what you have seen, what is now, and what will take place later. This creates a structure for the entire narrative. It divides the experience into 3 parts: past observation, present condition, and future events. From this point forward, everything John records fits into that framework. The explanation of the 7 lampstands and the 7 stars follows immediately. The lampstands represent the 7 churches, and the stars are identified as their angels or messengers. This clarification matters because it shows that not everything is left unexplained. Some elements are directly interpreted within the text, establishing a pattern that will continue. Certain symbols are defined, while others remain for the reader to consider. At this point, the initial encounter is complete, but it leads directly into the next phase. The focus shifts from John's personal experience to specific messages that must be delivered. These messages will address real conditions, actions, and consequences within each of the 7 communities. And this raises a key question moving into the next act. What exactly was said to these churches, and why were those messages considered urgent enough to be written and sent immediately? That is where we go next. The next phase of the vision moves from the initial encounter to direct communication. John is instructed to write specific messages to 7 churches, each located in a known city within the Roman province of Asia. These were not symbolic locations. They were active communities with identifiable challenges. This matters because the content of the messages is grounded in real conditions, not abstract ideas. Each message follows a structured pattern identification: acknowledgement of actions, evaluation, warning, or encouragement, and a final call to respond. The first message is directed to Ephesus, a major urban center known for commerce, religious activity, and influence. The message begins by acknowledging their actions. They are described as persistent, disciplined, and unwilling to tolerate false teachings. They have tested individuals who claimed authority and rejected those who were not genuine. This establishes that the community was active in maintaining doctrinal boundaries. However, the evaluation shifts quickly. They are told that they have left their first love. This is not defined emotionally, but functionally it indicates a departure from their original motivation and commitment. This matters because it shows that correct behavior alone was not considered sufficient. Intention and continuity also mattered. The instruction given to Ephesus is direct. Remember where you have fallen from, return, and act accordingly. There is also a warning. If they do not change, their lampstand will be removed. Earlier, the lampstands were identified as representing the churches themselves. This implies consequence at the level of existence or influence. The message is not symbolic encouragement. It presents a conditional outcome tied to action. The closing statement introduces a recurring phrase: "Whoever has ears, let them hear." This signals that the message, while specific, carries relevance beyond a single location. The second message is addressed to Smyrna, a city known for loyalty to Rome and strong imperial presence. Unlike Ephesus, the message to Smyrna contains no criticism. Instead, it focuses on external pressure. The community is described as experiencing affliction and poverty, though it is stated that they are rich. This contrast matters because it separates material condition from evaluated status. The message also refers to opposition from a group described as claiming religious identity but acting in hostility. This indicates internal conflict within a broader religious context. The instruction to Smyrna is not to correct behavior, but to endure what is coming. They are told directly that imprisonment will occur and that the testing period will be limited in duration. This introduces a measurable time frame, which reinforces that these events are expected and contained. The key directive is to remain faithful even to the point of death. This is not presented as metaphor. It reflects the real possibility of execution under Roman authority. The outcome is also clearly stated: the crown of life. This establishes a direct link between endurance and reward. This first set of messages establishes a pattern that will continue through the remaining churches. Each community is addressed individually, with specific conditions, expectations, and consequences. There is no generalized instruction. Everything is targeted, measured, and connected to identifiable behavior or circumstance. At this point, two distinct situations are already visible. In Ephesus, the issue is internal loss of original commitment despite correct structure. In Smyrna, the issue is external pressure, opposition, and threat of persecution. This contrast matters because it shows that the evaluation is not limited to one type of failure or success. Both internal condition and external response are considered. As the messages continue, the situations become more complex. Some communities will be shown to tolerate practices that directly contradict the instruction they were given. Others will be described as appearing stable while already in decline. And in each case, the consequences will be tied directly to their response. The next messages shift the focus to Pergamum and Thyatira locations, where compromise and internal influence begin to alter the direction of the community itself. That is where the situation intensifies. The third message is directed to Pergamum, a city recognized for its political importance and strong connection to imperial authority. It was a center of Roman administration and also known for multiple religious altars, including those dedicated to the emperor. This context matters because it explains the phrase used in the message. Pergamum is described as the place where Satan's throne is. This is not presented as metaphorical speculation, but as a direct description of the environment in which the community existed, an area of concentrated political and religious pressure aligned against their beliefs. The message begins with acknowledgement. The community is described as holding firmly to its commitment, even in a place of hostility. It specifically mentions an individual named Antipas, identified as a faithful witness who was killed among them. This matters because it confirms that the threat in Pergamum was not theoretical. Execution had already taken place. Despite this, the group did not abandon its position. This establishes strength under pressure, similar to what was seen in Smyrna. However, the evaluation does not stop at external resistance. The message shifts to internal condition. It states that some within the community hold two teachings associated with Balaam and others to the These references indicate influence from individuals or groups, promoting practices that were considered incompatible with the original instruction. The exact details are not expanded here, but the implication is clear. Compromise had entered from within. This matters because it shows that maintaining identity under external pressure does not prevent internal deviation. The instruction given to Pergamum is direct repent. There is no gradual suggestion or extended explanation. The warning that follows introduces a consequence framed in immediate terms. If they do not change, action will be taken against those promoting these teachings. The language used connects authority with judgment, reinforcing that internal deviation carries measurable outcomes. The closing again includes the call to listen and a promise directed to those who overcome, maintaining the consistent structure established in earlier messages. The next message moves to Thyatira, and the situation becomes more complex. Unlike Pergamum, where compromise is present but not dominant, Thyatira is described as active, growing, and outwardly effective. The message acknowledges their works: love, service, faith, and endurance. It even states that their later actions exceed their earlier ones. This matters because it shows visible progress and development. From an external perspective, this community would appear stable and successful. However, the evaluation introduces a critical issue. The message states that they tolerate a specific influence, identified symbolically as Jezebel. This figure is described as teaching and leading members into practices that contradict the expected standard. The key detail is not just the presence of this influence, but the fact that it is being allowed. This matters because it shifts responsibility from the individual promoting the teaching to the community that permits it to continue. The consequence outlined for this situation is more detailed than in previous messages. A period of time had already been given for correction, and it is stated that this opportunity was not used. As a result, the outcome is described in terms of exposure and accountability. Those directly involved, as well as those aligned with them, are included in the consequence. This reinforces that the impact of internal influence extends beyond a single individual and affects the entire structure of the community. At the same time, a distinction is made. Not everyone in Thyatira is associated with this influence. Those who have not adopted these practices are given a different instruction. Hold on to what you have until the next phase. This matters because it separates responsibility and shows that evaluation is applied at both group and individual levels. At this point, the pattern of the messages is fully established. External pressure, internal compromise, tolerance of conflicting influence, and the requirement for response are all present. Each message builds on the previous one, expanding the scope of what is being addressed. The progression now moves toward the final set of churches, where the focus shifts from active compromise to something more subtle: conditions, where appearance does not match reality, and where stability may conceal deeper problems. That shift begins with Sardis and Philadelphia. As the messages continue, the focus shifts from identifying problems to outlining immediate consequences. At Tistas, the pattern becomes more direct. The communities are no longer only being evaluated, they are being warned about what will happen if no action is taken. This matters because the tone changes from observation to urgency. Each consequence is tied to a specific condition, where there was a loss of commitment. The warning involves removal of position, where there was compromise. The response involves direct confrontation, where harmful influence was tolerated. The outcome extends beyond individuals and affects the wider community. This establishes a consistent principle. Actions are followed by measurable results, and inaction is treated as a decision with its own consequences. At the same time, the messages introduce a narrowing distinction. Not everyone within each community is addressed in the same way. Those who have not followed the problematic practices are identified separately and given a different instruction: hold firm, maintain what remains, and do not adopt what has already been rejected. This matters because it shows the responsibility is applied individually, even within a collective setting. The tension increases because the time frame is no longer open. In some cases, it is stated that opportunity for correction has already been given. This implies that delay reduces options and brings consequences closer. The situation is no longer developing yet. It's reaching a point where response becomes unavoidable. This builds a clear transition. Evaluation has led to warning, and warning is now moving toward execution. By the time the final messages are delivered, the structure is fully established and the outcomes are clearly defined. Each community has been evaluated, warned, and given a direct path forward. At this point, the focus shifts from identifying problems to consolidating what these messages mean as a whole. This matters because the individual instructions now form a unified pattern of accountability, response, and consequence. Across all 7 churches, a consistent principle emerges. Condition determines outcome. Where there is endurance under pressure, the result is affirmation and promise. Where there is compromise or neglect, the result is warning and the possibility of removal. Where there is refusal to correct, the consequence becomes unavoidable. This is not presented as symbolic language, but as a structured system of cause and effect tied to specific actions. Another key element becomes clear. Every message ends with a forward-looking statement directed to the one who overcomes. This introduces continuity beyond the immediate situation. The outcome is not limited to the current condition of each community, but extends into what comes next. This matters because it shifts the focus from present evaluation to future participation. At this point, the messages are complete, but they are not the end of the vision. They function as a foundation. The conditions described, the response is required, and the consequences outlined to prepare for the next phase, where the scope expands beyond individual communities. The question now changes. If these were the conditions on Earth, what happens next in the sequence John is about to witness? That next step does not take place on Earth. It begins in heaven after the messages to the 7 churches are completed. The focus of the vision shifts completely. Until this point, everything has been directed toward conditions on earthreal communities, real actions, and immediate consequences. Now, the scene changes, and with it, the scope of what John is about to witness. John records that he sees a door standing open in heaven. This is presented as a direct observation, not a symbolic idea. The same voice he heard before, described with the clarity and force of a trumpet, speaks again. This matters because it establishes continuity. The authority guiding the earlier messages is the same authority now directing the next phase. The instruction is immediate. Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this. This statement defines the transition. What follows is not commentary on the past or presented. Is a sequence of events described as future. At this point, John states that he is in the spirit again, indicating a shift in perception similar to what occurred at the beginning of the vision. However, the setting is now entirely different. He is no longer describing an island or any physical location on Earth. Instead, the first thing he sees is a throne set in heaven, with someone seated on it. This is the central element of the entire scene. Everything that follows is arranged around this throne, making it the focal point of authority and control. The description of the one seated on the throne is given in visual terms, appearance like jasper and carnelian, with a rainbow encircling the throne resembling an emerald. These details are presented without interpretation, but they establish intensity, brightness, and structure. Surrounding the central throne are 24 additional thrones, and seated on them are 24 elders, dressed in white garments with gold crowns on their heads. This arrangement matters because it introduces order and hierarchy. The scene is not chaotic. It is organized and deliberate. From the throne come flashes of lightning, rumblings, and thunder. These are not decorative details, they indicate power and presence. In front of the throne are 7 lamps of fire, identified as the 7 spirits of God. This connects back to earlier elements in the vision, reinforcing continuity. There is also something described as a sea of glass, clear like crystal, extending before the throne. This detail defines the space and separates the central authority from what surrounds it. Closest to the throne are 4 living creatures, each described with specific features. They are full of eyes, both in front and behind, and each has a distinct form, one like a lion, one like onyx, one with a human face, and one like a flying eagle. Each has 6 wings, and they are described as constantly active, never ceasing in what they say. This matters because it introduces ongoing function. These are not passive figures. They are continuously engaged in what appears to be a defined role. At this point, the structure of the scene is fully established. There is a central throne, surrounding figures, defined positions, and continuous activity. The environment is stable, but the tension lies in what has not yet been revealed, why John has been brought here, and what he is about to be shown next. The instruction was clear. He would be shown what must take place after this. The setting is now in place. The question is no longer where this is happening, but what is about to begin. With the structure of the throne room established, John begins to describe what is happening within it. The scene is not static. Every element is active, and each figure has a defined role. This matters because it shows that what John is witnessing is not simply a display of power, but an ongoing system of function and response. The four living creatures closest to the throne are the first to be described in motion. They do not pause or alternate in their activity. John records that they continuously declare, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come." This repetition is not presented as poetic emphasis, but as a constant function. It defines recognition of authority across time, present, and future. This matters because it reinforces the identity of the one on the throne as not limited to a single moment or condition. Each time the living creatures speak, a response follows from the 24 elders. They fall down before the one seated on the throne, place their crowns before him, and acknowledge his authority. This sequence repeats. The crowns represent position and status, and placing them down indicates submission. This matters because it shows that authority in this setting is not contested. It is recognized and reinforced through repeated action. The elders also speak, declaring that the one on the throne is worthy to receive glory, honor, and power, because all things were created by him and exists by his will. This introduces a new layer to the scene. Authority is not only based on position, but on origin. The one on the throne is identified as the source of creation itself. This matters because it expands the scope of control from governance to existence. At this point, the activity in the throne room follows a clear pattern. The living creatures initiate recognition, the elders respond with submission, and both actions reinforce the central authority. This cycle does not change or pause. It establishes stability and order within the environment. However, the presence of constant activity also creates contrast. Everything is functioning as expected, yet the reason John has been brought here has not yet been revealed. The instruction was to show what must take place after this, but no events have begun. This matters because it builds tension. The setting is prepared, the authority is established, but the sequence of actions has not yet started. That changes in the next moment. John's attention is drawn away from the surrounding activity and toward something in the right hand of the one seated on the throne, an object that introduces the next phase of the vision. As the scene continues, John's attention is drawn to a specific detail that had not been emphasized before. In the right hand of the one seated on the throne, there is a scroll. It is described as being written on both sides and sealed with 7 seals. This is not a minor element in the scene. It immediately becomes the central object of focus. The fact that it is in the right hand matters, because that position is associated with authority, control, and execution of decisions. This indicates that whatever is contained in the scroll is directly connected to what is about to happen next. The structure of the scroll is also significant. It is written on both sides, which suggests completeness. Nothing has been left out, and nothing needs to be added. The content is already finalized. At the same time, it is sealed with 7 seals. This is not partial restriction. 7 indicates full closure, meaning the scroll cannot be accessed in stages unless each seal is intentionally broken. This matters because it establishes that the events contained within the scroll are not random or open to interpretation. They are fixed, secured, and awaiting authorized release. A strong angel then appears and makes a proclamation with a loud voice. "Who is worthy to open the scroll and break its seals?" This is not a general question. It introduces a requirement. The scroll cannot be opened based on ability alone. Worthiness is the condition. This implies a standard that must be met, one that is not defined in detail at this moment, but is clearly understood within the scene. The question is directed outward, across all levels of existence. What follows is immediate and absolute. John observes that no one in heaven, on earth, or under the earth is able to open the scroll, or even to look inside it. This is a complete exclusion. It eliminates every possible category of spiritual beings, human beings, and anything beyond. The absence of a qualified individual is not temporary or uncertain. It is presented as a confirmed reality at that moment. John's reaction is direct. He begins to weep intensely. This is not a symbolic response. It is emotional and immediate. The reason for this reaction is clearly stated: no one was found worthy to open the scroll. This matters because it reveals that the opening of the scroll is not optional. It is necessary for what comes next. Without it, the sequence of events cannot begin. The entire progression is effectively paused. At this point, attention and the vision reaches a new level. The authority of the throne has been established. The environment is structured and active. But now there is a barrier. There is something that must happen, and no one is able to initiate it. This creates a contradiction. The vision has been introduced as a revelation of what must take place. Yet the mechanism required to begin that process is inaccessible. This is the first clear problem introduced in the sequence. Until now, everything has moved forward without interruption. Now, the progression is blocked. The question of what will happen is temporarily replaced by a more immediate issue. Who can make it happen? The scene holds in this moment of tension, with the scroll remaining sealed and the requirement unmet. Then, without delay, the situation changes not by removing the requirement, but by revealing someone who meets it. The tension created by the sealed scroll does not remain unresolved for long. As John weeps, one of the elders speaks to him directly, interrupting that moment of uncertainty. The instruction is clear: do not weep. This is immediately followed by an explanation: someone has been found who meets the requirement. This matters because the condition introduced earlier is not removed or altered. The standard of worthiness still stands. What changes is that there is now an individual who fulfills it. The elder identifies this individual using two titles: the Lion of the tribe of Judah and the Root of David. These are not new descriptions. They connect back to established lineage and authority within the historical and prophetic framework known to John. This matters because it places the solution within continuity, not as an unexpected or unrelated development. The one who is able to open the scroll is not separate from what has come before. He is directly tied to it. However, when John looks, what he sees does not match the initial description. Instead of a lion, he sees a lamb standing, described as though it had been slain. This contrast is critical. The image combines two conditions: death and life at the same time. The lamb is not lying down or inactive. It is stunning. This indicates that although it has been killed, it is now alive. This matters because it directly addresses the requirement of worthiness. The qualification is not based on force or position alone, but on what has already occurred. The lamb is also described as having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are identified as the 7 spirits sent out into all the earth. This detail reinforces completeness and reach. Nothing is outside its awareness or authority. The scene now shifts from identification to action. The lamb approaches the throne and takes the scroll from the right hand of the one seated on it. This is the first physical action involving the scroll. It is no longer inaccessible. The requirement has been met, and the transfer takes place without resistance. The moment the scroll is taken, the response in the throne room changes immediately. The 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fall down before the Lamb, just as they had before the one on the throne. This matters because it confirms recognition of authority. Each elder holds a harp and golden bowls full of incense, identified as the prayers of the saints. This introduces a new connection. What has been happening on earth is now present in this setting. They begin to sing a new song, stating that the Lamb is worthy to take the scroll and open its seals because it was slain and has redeemed people from every nation. This is the first time the reason for worthiness is fully stated. It is directly tied to what has already been done. The authority to act comes from a completed action, not a future potential. At this point, the obstacle has been removed, the scroll has been taken, and the authority to open it has been established. The sequence that was delayed is now ready to begin. The next step is no longer about who is worthy. It is about what happens when the first seal is opened. with the scroll now in the possession of the one found worthy. The next phase begins immediately. There is no delay, no transition back to explanation. The sequence moves forward through action. This matters because everything that was previously established authority, structure, and qualification now leads to execution. The Lamb begins to open the seals, one by one. When the first seal is opened, one of the four living creatures speaks with a voice like thunder, saying, "Come." This command is not directed at John. It initiates the appearance of the first event. John then sees a white horse, and its rider is holding a bow. A crown is given to him, and they go out conquering and to conquer. The description is brief but specific. The rider is active, moving forward with purpose, and the outcome is expansion of control. This matters because it introduces the pattern. Each seal does not reveal information, it releases events. The second seal is opened, and another of the living creatures gives the same command. A red horse appears, and its rider is given power to take peace from the earth, causing people to turn against one another. A large sword is also given to him. The sequence escalates. The first rider expands control. The second disrupts stability. This matters because it shows that the events are not isolated. They build on each other. Conflict follows expansion. When the third seal is opened, the pattern continues. A black horse appears, and its rider holds a pair of scales. A voice is heard from among the living creatures, specifying the cost of basic goods, measured amounts of wheat and barley for fixed prices, while oil and wine are not to be harmed. This introduces economic imbalance. The presence of scales indicates measurement, limitation, and control of resources. This matters because it shifts the impact from conflict to survival conditions. The fourth seal is opened, and a pale horse appears. Its rider is named Death, and Hades follows close behind. Authority is given to them over a portion of the earth to kill by sword, famine, plague, and wild animals. This is the most direct and comprehensive outcome so far. The previous events, conquest, conflict, and scarcity, now lead to widespread death. This matters because it shows progression. Each seal intensifies the consequences of the previous one. At this point, 4 seals have been opened, and 4 distinct events have been released. Each one follows a clear pattern: command, appearance, and effect. There is no interpretation given within the scene. The sequence is presented as observed actions with defined outcomes. The structure is now clear. Opening the seals does not reveal hidden meaning, it initiates real consequences. And the sequence is not complete. The next seal does not bring another rider. It reveals something that had been happening already. As the Lamb continues to open the seals, the pattern established with the first 4 begins to shift. Up to this point, each seal released an event that affected conditions on Earth: invisible ways, conquest, conflict, scarcity, and death. With the opening of the 5th seal, the focus changes from external events to something that had already been happening but had not yet been revealed. This matters because the sequence is not only about what is coming, but also about what has already taken place without being fully seen. When the 5th seal is opened, John does not see another rider or a new form of disruption on the surface of the earth. Instead, he sees under the altar the souls of those who had been killed because of the word of God and the testimony they had maintained. This is a direct continuation of what was hinted at earlier in the messages to the churches, particularly in places where persecution and execution were already present. The difference now is that these individuals are no longer described in terms of events on Earth, but as a collective group in a different setting, identified by the cause of their death. They are not silent. They call out with a loud voice, asking how long it will be before judgment is carried out and their blood is addressed. This is not presented as symbolic language or emotional exaggeration. It is a direct request for resolution. This matters because it introduces a new dimension to the sequence: accountability for what has already occurred. The earlier seals showed consequences affecting the living. This seal reveals the status of those who have already been affected. In response, each of them is given a white robe and told to rest for a little longer, until the full number of those who are to be killed in the same way is completed. This introduces a measurable condition. The process is not indefinite. There is a defined point at which this phase will reach completion. This matters because it confirms that what is happening is not uncontrolled. There is a structure and a limit, even in events involving death and persecution. When the sixth seal is opened, the sequence shifts again, returning to visible, large-scale disruption. John describes a great earthquake, followed by a series of changes affecting the sky and the earth. The sun becomes black, the moon turns red, and the stars fall to the earth. The sky itself is described as receding, and mountains and islands are moved from their positions. These are not localized events. They affect the entire environment, altering both what is seen above and what is established below. The response from people on Earth is immediate and widespread. Individuals from all levels, kings, leaders, soldiers, and others react in the same way. They hide and call for the mountains and rocks to fall on them, attempting to escape what they recognize as a moment of judgment. This matters because it shows awareness. The reaction is not confusion. It is a recognition of what is happening. At T's point, the sequence has moved from controlled release of events to visible, global disruption, combined with a clear human response. The progression is no longer gradual. It has reached a level where the impact is undeniable, and the reaction is driven by fear of what comes next. The question now is not whether the sequence would continue, but how it will proceed after such a large-scale shift has already taken place. After the sixth seal introduces large-scale disruption affecting both the sky and the earth, the sequence does not immediately proceed to the seventh seal. Instead, there is a deliberate pause. This is not a break caused by uncertainty or delay, but an intentional interruption within the sequence itself. This matters because it shows that even in a progression of escalating events, there are controlled moments where specific actions must be completed before anything else can continue. The flow is not chaotic or uncontrolled. It is structured and timed. John describes seeing 4 angels positioned at the 4 corners of the earth, each holding back the 4 winds. The description is direct and functional. The winds are not symbolic background elements. They represent forces capable of affecting the land, the sea, and the vegetation. The fact that these winds are being restrained indicates that further disruption is possible but temporarily suspended. This matters because it establishes that what has already happened under the first 6 seals is not the full extent of what could occur. There is more to be released, but it is being held back for a specific reason. Another angel then appears, ascending from the east, carrying what is identified as the seal of the living God. The direction is noted, but more importantly, the function is clear. This angel has authority to issue a command that directly affects the 4 angels already in position. He calls out with a loud voice, instructing them not to harm the earth, the sea, or the trees, until a particular action is completed. The instruction introduces a condition that must be fulfilled before the sequence can resume. This matters because it confirms that timing is dependent on completion of specific tasks, not simply on the passage of events. The task is defined as the marking of the servants of God on their foreheads. This is not described in symbolic terms or left open to interpretation within the scene. It is presented as a clear act of identification. The location of the marked forehead indicates visibility and recognition. These individuals are being distinguished in a way that is both intentional and observable. This matters because it introduces separation within the broader population. Not everyone is treated the same within the unfolding sequence. There is a defined group that is identified before further events are allowed to proceed. John then hears the number of those who are sealed: 144,000. The number is not approximate or suggested, it is stated directly. It is further broken down into groups of 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. This structured listing reinforces that the process is organized and precise. There is no randomness in who is marked. The distribution follows a defined pattern. indicating that the selection is both intentional and measured. This matters because it shows that even within a large-scale sequence of global events, specific groups are accounted for individually. After hearing this number, John's perspective expands. He sees a second group, described as a great multitude that no one could count, coming from every nation, tribe, people, and language. This group stands before the throne and before the Lamb, wearing white robes and holding palm branches. The contrast between the two groups is immediate. The first is counted, structured, and tied to a specific lineage. The second is uncountable and drawn from all regions and backgrounds. This matters because it expands the scope of what is taking place beyond a single defined group, showing that the impact of the sequence extends globally. The identity of this second group is clarified when one of the elders explains that they are those who have come out of great tribulation. This connects them directly to the events already released through the opening of the seals. Their presence before the throne indicates that they have passed through those conditions and are no longer part of the ongoing events on Earth. This establishes a direct relationship between what is happening on Earth and the outcome beyond it. The sequence is not isolated. It produces results that are immediately reflected in another setting. At this point, the purpose of the interruption becomes clear. The forces that could continue the disruption have been held back. A specific group has been marked with precision, and a larger outcome has been revealed through the presence of the multitude. The sequence has not stopped. It has been prepared for continuation under defined conditions. The restraint is temporary. The identification is complete, and the transition is ready to occur. With these elements in place, the vision returns to the scroll. The final seal remains unopened, and its opening will not simply continue the pattern seen before. It will introduce a different kind of response, one that changes the pace and the structure of what follows. After the interruption is completed and the identified groups have been marked and revealed, the sequence returns to the scroll. Up to this point, each seal has triggered immediate and visible outcomes, conditions altered, people affected, and large-scale disruption established. The pattern has been consistent. A seal is opened, an event follows. However, when the seventh seal is opened, that pattern changes. This matters because it signals a shift, not only in events, but in the structure of how those events are delivered. When the Lamb opens the seventh seal, the immediate result is not action, but silence. John records that there is silence in heaven for about half an hour. This is a precise observation, not a symbolic statement. The duration is noted, indicating that this pause is measurable and intentional. This matters because it interrupts the momentum that has been building through the previous seals. Instead of escalation, there is suspension. The environment that had been filled with continuous activity voices, declarations, responses becomes still. This silence functions as a transition. It separates what has already occurred from what is about to begin. The previous sequence was driven by the opening of seals, each producing a direct outcome. Now, a new phase is introduced. John sees 7 angels standing before God, and to them are given 7 trumpets. This is the first time these instruments appear in the sequence. The introduction of the trumpets indicates that the next set of events will follow a different structure. This matters because the method of progression is changing. The seals have been opened. Now, another system of release is being prepared. Before the trumpets are sounded, another action takes place. An angel comes and stands at the altar, holding a golden censer. He is given a large amount of incense to offer with the prayers of all the saints on the golden altar before the throne. This detail connects what is happening in this setting with what has been happening on Earth. The prayers are not abstract, they are collected, presented, and combined with the incense. This matters because it shows that human actions, specifically prayer, are integrated into the sequence that is unfolding. The smoke of the incense, mixed with the prayers, rises before God. Immediately after this, the same angel takes the censer, fills it with fire from the altar, and throws it to the earth. This action is direct and forceful. It is followed by noises, thunder, lightning, and an earthquake. These are not new elements. They have appeared before, but their reappearance here signals that something is being initiated. This matters because it connects the offering of the prayers with the response that follows. The sequence is not disconnected. There is a cause and effect relationship between what is presented and what is released. At this point, the 7 angels, with the trumpets prepared to sound them. The preparation itself is noted, indicating that what follows will not be random or immediate, but ordered and sequential. The silence has ended. The transition has been completed, and the next phase is ready to begin. The pattern has shifted from seals to trumpets, from immediate release to structured progression through sound. This moment marks a clear division in the vision. The opening of the seals has established conditions and consequences, identified groups, and revealed outcomes. Now, the sounding of the trumpets will begin a new sequence that builds on what has already been set in motion. The environment has been reset through silence. The instruments have been given, and the connection between heaven and earth has been reinforced through the offering and response. The sequence is ready to move forward again, but under a new structure. And when the first trumpet is sounded, the effects will not remain contained. They will begin to impact the earth in a different and more direct way. With the silence concluded and the 7 angels prepared, the next phase begins through a new mechanism: the sounding of trumpets. Unlike the seals, which released events through opening, the trumpets introduce a sequence triggered by sound. This matters because it marks a structural shift in how the events unfold. The pattern remains ordered and sequential, but the effects now become more targeted and visibly destructive, affecting specific parts of the natural world. When the first trumpet is sounded, the result is immediate. Hail and fire mixed with blood are thrown down upon the earth. The impact is defined in measurable terms. 1/3 of the earth is burned up, along with 1/3 of the trees, and all green grass. This is not described as total destruction, but as partial, controlled damage. The repetition of 1/3 introduces a limit. This matters because it shows that even in escalation, the events are not absolute. There is restraint within the destruction, indicating that what is happening is measured, not uncontrolled. The second trumpet is sounded, and something like a great mountain, burning with fire, is thrown into the sea. The description does not identify the object with precision, but its effect is clearly defined. 1/3 of the sea becomes blood, 1/3 of the living creatures in the sea die, and 1/3 of the ships are destroyed. The focus shifts from land to sea, expanding the scope of impact. This matters because it shows that the effects are not isolated to one domain. The disruption is spreading across different environments, affecting both natural life and human activity. When the 3rd trumpet sounds, another object appears, described as a great star burning like a torch, falling from the sky onto 1/3 of the rivers and springs of water. The name of the star is given as wormwood. Its effect is specific. The waters become bitter, and many people die from drinking them. This introduces a direct impact on human survival. Unlike the previous events, which affected environment and infrastructure, this one directly alters a fundamental resource. This matters because it shows progression from external damage to internal consequence, affecting what people depend on to live. The 4th trumpet is then sounded, and the pattern continues. 1/3 of the sun, 1/3 of the moon, and 1/3 of the stars are struck, causing a reduction in light. The day loses 1/3 of its brightness, and the night is affected in the same way. This is not total darkness, but a measurable decrease in visibility. This matters because it affects time, rhythm, and orientation. The cycle of day and night is altered, impacting how life is structured and experienced. At Point 4, trumpets had been sounded, and each has produced a distinct effect. The pattern is consistent: sound, event, and measurable outcome. The repetition of partial impact to 3rd remains constant, reinforcing the idea of controlled escalation. The effects have moved from land to sea, to fresh water, and now to the sky itself, covering all major domains of the natural world. However, before the sequence continues, A new element is introduced. An eagle is seen flying overhead, calling out with a loud voice, warning of what is still to come. This interruption is not a pause, but a signal that the next events will be different in intensity and nature. The warning is clear. The remaining trumpet blasts will bring a level of impact that surpasses what has already been released. The pattern has been established, but the next phase will no longer be limited to environmental disruption. After the first 4 trumpets affect the natural world in measurable and controlled ways, the sequence shifts again with the sounding of the 5th trumpet. Up to this point, the damage has been directed toward land, sea, water sources, and the sky. The pattern has been environmental, even when it indirectly affects human life. With the 5th trumpet, the focus moves from external conditions to a different kind of impact, one that introduces a new source of activity. This matters because the nature of what is being released changes, and with it, the type of consequence experienced. John describes seeing a star that had already fallen from heaven to earth. This is not a new fall occurring at that moment. It is a condition that has already taken place. The star is then given a key to the shaft of the abyss. The detail of the key matters because it represents controlled access. The abyss is not open by default. It is secured and requires authorization to be accessed. This indicates that what is about to be released is contained and restricted until this specific moment. When the shaft of the abyss is opened, smoke rises from it like the smoke of a large furnace. The effect is immediate and widespread. The sun and the air are darkened by the smoke, altering visibility and atmosphere. This continues the pattern of environmental impact, but introduces a source that is not part of the natural order described in the earlier trumpets. The darkness here is not caused by celestial disruption, but by what emerges from below. This matters because it shows that the sequence is expanding beyond surface-level effects into deeper, previously contained elements. Out of the smoke come locusts upon the earth, but their behavior and description do not match ordinary locusts. They are given power similar to that of scorpions, and their function is defined by restriction. They are instructed not to harm the grass, trees, or any green plant elements that were previously affected by earlier events. Instead, their target is specific: people who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. This distinction matters because it reinforces the importance of the marking described earlier. The separation that was established now determines who is affected. The locusts are not given authority to kill, but to torment for a limited period, 5 months. The duration is specified, indicating that this phase is also controlled and not indefinite. The nature of the torment is described as comparable to the sting of a scorpion, producing ongoing pain rather than immediate death. This matters because it introduces a different type of consequence. Instead of destruction, there is prolonged suffering, altering the experience of those affected. John also describes the appearance of these locusts in detail. They resemble horses prepared for battle, with something like crowns on their heads, faces like human faces, hair like that of women, and teeth like lions. They have breastplates like iron, and the sound of their wings is like chariots rushing into battle. Their tails are like scorpions, equipped with stingers used to inflict harm. These details are presented without interpretation, but they establish that what is being described is structured, organized, and purposeful. This matters because it removes the possibility of random occurrence. The activity is directed. The locusts are also said to have a king over them, identified as the Angel of the Abyss. His name is given in both Hebrew and Greek, reinforcing recognition across different audiences. This introduces hierarchy within what has been released, indicating that the activity is coordinated rather than chaotic. The presence of leadership matters because it shows that the events are not only controlled at the level of release, but also at the level of execution. At this point, the sequence has moved beyond environmental disruption into a form of directed torment with defined targets, duration, and structure. The distinction between those marked and unmarked is now active, not theoretical. The effects are no longer indirect. They are experienced personally and continuously. The progression is clear. What was previously affecting surroundings is now affecting individuals directly. And this is only the first of the final 3 trumpet events, with the 5th trumpet introducing a shift from environmental impact to targeted torment. The sounding of the 6th trumpet advances the sequence further, both in scale and in consequence. The pattern continues: sound, release, and effect, but the magnitude increases, and the nature of what is released becomes more directly associated with large-scale loss of life. This matters because the progression is no longer limited to disruption or suffering. It now moves into sustained and measurable destruction, affecting a significant portion of the population. When the 6th trumpet is sounded, John hears a voice coming from the 4 horns of the golden altar before God. This detail connects the event back to the setting, where the prayers were previously offered, reinforcing continuity between what has been presented and what is now being released. The voice gives a clear instruction to the 6th angel: release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. The instruction is specific in both number and location. This matters because it indicates that what is about to happen has already been prepared and is now being activated at a defined point. The 4 angels are described as having been kept ready for this exact hour, day, month, and year. This level of precision is not incidental. It establishes that the timing of the event is fixed and intentional. There is no indication of delay or adjustment. The release occurs exactly when scheduled. This matters because it reinforces the controlled nature of the entire sequence. Even at this stage of escalation, nothing is occurring outside of a defined plan. Once released, the 4 angels are given authority to carry out a specific outcome: the killing of 1/3 of mankind. This is the first time the proportion 1/3 is applied directly to human population rather than environment or resources. The shift is significant. The earlier trumpets affected the conditions in which people live. Now, the impact is directly on human life, at a large scale. This matters because it marks a transition from indirect consequence to direct and widespread loss. John then describes the means through which this outcome is carried out. He hears the number of mounted troops to 100 million and states that he heard their number. The scale is emphasized. This is not an undefined force. It is presented as an organized and countable army. The description that follows focuses on both the riders and the horses. The riders wear breastplates of specific colors: fiery red, dark blue, and yellow like sulfur, while the horses have heads like lions, and from their mouths come fire, smoke, and sulfur. The effect of these elements is clearly stated. 1/3 of mankind is killed by the fire, smoke, and sulfur that come out of their mouths. The power of the horses is said to be in both their mouths and their tails, with the tails resembling snakes capable of inflicting harm. These details are presented in a structured way, emphasizing function rather than symbolism. This matters because the focus remains on outcome, how the effect is produced and what it results in. Despite the scale of the event, the response from those who remain alive is also recorded. John states that the rest of mankind, those not killed by these plagues, did not change their actions. They continued in the practices previously identified, including forms of worship and behavior that had already been addressed earlier in the sequence. This is a critical detail. It shows that even after direct and large-scale consequence, the expected response change or correction does not occur. At this point, the sequence has reached a level where both the scale of impact and the lack of response are clearly defined. The events are no longer limited in effect, and the outcomes are no longer producing the expected adjustment in behavior. This matters because it introduces a new layer of tension not only in what is happening, but in how it is being received. The progression is now approaching its next transition, and before the final trumpet is sounded, the sequence will pause once again, but for a different reason than before. After the 6th trumpet releases large-scale destruction and establishes both the magnitude of impact and the lack of response from those who remain, the sequence does not immediately proceed to the 7th trumpet. Instead, just as it did between the 6th and 7th seals, there is another interruption. This is not a delay caused by uncertainty, but a structured pause inserted before the next phase begins. This matters because it shows that even at the highest levels of escalation, the sequence is still governed by timing, preparation, and specific actions that must be completed. John describes seeing another angel coming down from heaven, distinct in appearance and position. The angel is wrapped in a cloud, with a rainbow above his head, his face like the sun, and his legs like pillars of fire. These details are presented as direct observation and establish presence and authority. The angel is holding a small scroll, already open in his hand. This is different from the sealed scroll seen earlier. That scroll required authorization to be opened. This one is already accessible. This matters because it indicates that what this angel carries is not restricted in the same way. It is meant to be taken and understood. The angel places one foot on the sea and the other on the land, establishing position across both domains. This posture indicates scope. The message or action associated with this figure is not limited to a single region. When he speaks, his voice is compared to the roar of a lion, and when he calls out, 7 thunders respond. John hears what the thunders say, but he is instructed not to write it down. This is a rare moment in the sequence where information is intentionally withheld. This matters because it shows that not everything revealed to John is meant to be recorded or transmitted. Some elements remain undisclosed within the structure of the vision. The angel then raises his hand to heaven and makes a declaration, stating that there will be no more delay. He refers to the completion of what has been announced previously, connecting this moment to the broader sequence. This is a transition statement. It signals that the period of pause and preparation is ending, and that the next phase will move forward without interruption. This matters because it marks a shift from staged progression to accelerated completion. John is then instructed to take the small scroll from the angel. He does so, and the instruction is specific: he must eat it. The action is unusual, but clearly defined. When he eats the scroll, it tastes sweet in his mouth, but turns bitter in his stomach. This combination is not explained within the moment, but it establishes a dual effect: initial reception and internal consequence. This matters because it reflects the nature of what is being received. Information that is both desirable and difficult. After this, John is told that he must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, languages, and kings. This instruction repositions him within the sequence. He is not only an observer, he is a participant who will communicate what follows. This matters because it connects the vision directly to its transmission. What is about to happen is not only to be seen, but also declared. At this point, the interruption has served its purpose. Information has been delivered, a declaration has been made, and John has been prepared for the next phase. The sequence is no longer waiting. The final trumpet has not yet sounded, but when it does, it will not introduce another isolated event. It will mark a transition into something that changes the structure of the sequence itself. After the pause that follows the 6 trumpets, the sequence reaches a critical turning point. Up to this moment, each trumpet has produced a specific and contained effect: environmental disruption, targeted torment, and large-scale destruction. The pattern has been consistent: sound, release, consequence. However, when the 7th trumpet is finally sounded, the immediate result is not another isolated event. Instead, it produces a declaration. This matters because it signals a shift from individual occurrences to a broader, structural change in the narrative. When the 7th angel sounds his trumpet, loud voices are heard in heaven. These voices announce that the kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he will reign forever and ever. This statement is not presented as a gradual process, but as a defined outcome. It marks a transition in authority, indicating that what has been contested or divided is now being consolidated. This matters because it reframes everything that has occurred so far. The previous events are no longer isolated disruptions. They are part of a progression toward this declaration. Immediately following this announcement, the 24 elders, who were previously seen seated on their thrones, fall on their faces and worship. Their response follows the pattern established earlier: recognition of authority and submission, but the content of their declaration expands. They acknowledge that power has been taken and that reign has begun. They also refer to the reaction of the nations, stating that anger has been present, but that the time for judgment has now come. This introduces a new element: accountability, not only for individuals, but for entire groups or systems. The elders also refer to a sequence of outcomes that extend beyond judgment. They mention the rewarding of servants, prophets, and those who honor the name associated with the authority being declared. At the same time, they state that those who destroyed the earth will themselves be destroyed. This establishes a balanced structure: reward and consequence occurring within the same framework. This matters because it shows that the shift in authority includes both restoration and removal, depending on response and action. Following this, the temple of God in heaven is opened, and within it, the Ark of the Covenant is seen. This is a specific detail that connects the current moment to earlier established elements of covenant and agreement. The visibility of the Ark matters because it represents continuity. What is happening now is not disconnected from what was established before. The sequence is consistent with prior commitments and structures. The opening of the temple is accompanied by flashes of lightning, rumblings, thunder, an earthquake, and heavy hail. These elements have appeared before in different stages of the sequence, but their presence here reinforces that the declaration is not only verbalite, is accompanied by visible and physical manifestation. This matters because it confirms that the transition in authority is active, not theoretical. At this point, the seventh trumpet has not introduced a single contained event. Instead, it has opened a new phase in the sequence. The declaration establishes authority, the response confirms recognition, and the environment reflects the shift. The structure of the narrative is now expanding beyond sequential releases into a broader framework where multiple elements begin to operate together. The progression is no longer limited to what is being released one step at a time. It is now moving into a phase where underlying conflict, previously implied, will be revealed directly. After the seventh trumpet establishes a shift in authority and introduces a broader framework for what is unfolding, the vision changes again. The sequence no longer follows only a linear progression of events being released. Instead, John begins to see a series of signs that explain the underlying conflict behind everything that has been happening. This matters because the focus moves from visible consequences to the origin of those consequences, revealing the forces involved rather than just the results they produce. John describes a great sign appearing in heaven: a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. The description is structured and precise, presenting her position and appearance without immediate interpretation. She is pregnant and crying out in pain as she is about to give birth. This establishes a condition of transition. Something is about to emerge, and the moment is defined by pressure and expectation. This matters because it introduces a point of origin within the vision, where a new element is about to enter the sequence. A second sign appears immediately after. A great red dragon is seen, described with 7 heads, 10 horns, and crowns on each of its heads. The detail is deliberate and emphasizes scale, structure, and authority. The dragon's tail is said to sweep 1/3 of the stars from the sky and throw them to the earth. This mirrors earlier references to 1/3 being affected, reinforcing continuity within the sequence. The dragon positions itself in front of the woman, waiting for the child to be born so that it can devour it. This establishes direct opposition. The conflict is not passive or indirect. It is immediate and intentional. The child is then born, described as one who will rule all nations with a rod of iron. This statement defines authority and future role. However, the sequence does not allow for confrontation at that moment. The child is taken up to God and to his throne. This action removes the child from the immediate threat, preventing the dragon from carrying out its intention. This matters because it shows that the outcome is controlled. The conflict is real, but it is not resolved through direct struggle at this point. The woman then flees into the wilderness, to a place prepared for her, where she is sustained for a defined period of time. This introduces protection and provision within the sequence. The location is not described in detail, but its function is clear. It is a place of preservation during a period of danger. This matters because it shows that even within conflict, there are structured responses that ensure continuation rather than immediate destruction. The scene then shifts again, this time to a conflict in heaven. Michael and his angels fight against the dragon and his angels. The description is direct. There is a battle, and the result is that the dragon is defeated and cast out. The dragon is identified as the ancient serpent, associated with deception and opposition. This identification connects the figure to earlier references, reinforcing continuity across the broader narrative. The outcome of this conflict is removal. The dragon and those aligned with him are no longer allowed to remain in heaven. This matters because it changes the location of the conflict. What was previously positioned in a higher domain is now redirected. A loud voice declares that authority, power, and salvation have been established, and that the accuser has been thrown down. This reinforces the shift introduced by the seventh trumpet. However, this does not end the conflict. It relocates it. The dragon, now cast down, directs its focus toward the earth, continuing its opposition in a different setting. This matters because it explains why the intensity of events on Earth continues to increase. The source of conflict has not been eliminated, it has been moved. At this point, the sequence has revealed not only what is happening, but why it is happening. The visible events are connected to an ongoing conflict that is now fully active, and the next phase will show how that conflict begins to take form on Earth in a more direct and organized way. After the conflict is revealed and the dragon is cast down to the earth, the sequence begins to show how that opposition takes organized form. Up to this point, the dragon has been identified as the driving force behind resistance and disruption, but its direct method of operation on Earth has not yet been fully described. This changes as John now observes the emergence of two distinct figures that function as extensions of that authority. This matters because the conflict moves from spiritual confrontation into structured influence within the human world. John first sees a beast rising out of the sea. The description is detailed and emphasizes structure and authority. The beast has 10 horns and 7 heads, with crowns on its horns and names of blasphemy on its heads. This mirrors elements previously associated with the dragon, indicating a direct connection. The beast is not independent. It operates with delegated authority. This matters because it shows that what is appearing is part of an organized system, not an isolated entity. The appearance of the beast combines features from different animals, like a leopard, with feet like a bear and a mouth like a lion. These details are presented as observed characteristics and suggest a composite form, bringing together multiple attributes into a single structure. The dragon gives this beast its power, its throne, and its authority. This transfer is explicit. It confirms that the beast acts on behalf of the dragon, carrying out its influence within the visible world. One of the heads of the beast appears to have been fatally wounded, but the wound is healed. This event draws attention and produces a reaction. People begin to follow the beast, recognizing the recovery is significant. This matters because it shows how influence is established not only through power, but through events that generate attention and response. The reaction includes acknowledgement of the dragon as the source of the beast's authority, reinforcing the connection between them. The beast is then described as speaking in a way that opposes and challenges established authority. It is given power to act for a defined period, 42 months, and during that time, it exercises control and influence over many people. This duration is specific, indicating that even this phase is limited. The beast is allowed to wage war against those who remain aligned with the original authority, and to overcome them in that context. This matters because it shows that opposition is not only present but effective within a defined time frame. John then sees a second beast, this one rising out of the earth. Its appearance is different, less immediately imposing, but its function is critical. It acts in support of the first beast, directing attention toward it and encouraging people to follow it. This second figure performs signs that reinforce the authority of the first, creating a system of influence that combines action and persuasion. This matters because it shows that control is not established by force alone, but also through reinforcement and communication. The second beast also introduces a requirement that affects daily life. It causes people to receive a mark, without which they cannot buy or sell. This introduces economic control as a mechanism of influence. The mark is associated with the identity of the first beast, linking participation in the system to acceptance of its authority. This matters because it shows how the conflict extends into practical aspects of life, affecting decisions, access, and survival. At this point, the structure of opposition is fully visible. The dragon provides authority. The first beast exercises power and influence, and the second beast reinforces that system and ensures participation. The conflict is no longer abstract or hidden. It is organized, active, and integrated into the world. The sequence has moved from revelation to operation, and the next phase will begin to show how this system is challenged and what follows from that confrontation. With the system of control now fully established through the dragon and the two beasts, the sequence shifts again, this time focusing on response and separation. Up to this point, the vision has revealed authority, conflict, and the mechanisms through which influence is exercised on Earth. Now, the attention moves to how individuals are positioned within that system and what follows as a result. This matters because the narrative is no longer only describing structures of power, it is defining outcomes based on alignment. John describes seeing the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him a group identified as 144,000, the same number previously marked earlier in the sequence. This connection is direct and intentional. These individuals are described as having the name of the Lamb and of his Father written on their foreheads, reinforcing the distinction established before. This matters because it confirms continuity. The marking was not temporary. It defines identity and alignment across the unfolding events. A voice is then heard from heaven, described with intensity and layered sound, and those present are associated with a new song that only they can learn. This detail establishes exclusivity. The group is not only marked, but also set apart in function and recognition. They are described as those who follow the Lamb and are identified as having been redeemed. This reinforces the separation between them and the broader population affected by the system introduced earlier. The scene then expands as three angels appear, each delivering a message directed toward those on Earth. The first angel proclaims an eternal message, calling for recognition of the one who created the heavens, the earth, the sea, and the springs of water. This is presented as a direct instruction, not a suggestion. The second angel follows with a declaration that a major system, described as Babylon, has fallen. This introduces the concept of collapse within the structure of influence previously described. The third angel issues a warning regarding those who align with the beast and receive its mark, stating that consequences will follow that cannot be avoided. This matters because it establishes that alignment carries defined outcomes. At this point, the sequence becomes more explicit in its separation. Those who align with the system of the beast are associated with consequence, while those who remain aligned with the Lamb are associated with endurance and defined identity. The contrast is clear and intentional. It is not left open to interpretation within the scene. This matters because it reinforces that the conflict is not neutral. It produces distinct and irreversible positioning. John then observes the transition into action. He sees what is described as a harvest, where one like a son of man is seated on a cloud with a sharp sickle in his hand. The instruction is given to begin reaping, indicating that the time has come for the earth to be harvested. This is followed by another figure also holding a sickle, gathering what is described as the grapes of the earth and throwing them into a large one. The imagery is structured and functional. It represents collection and processing, not random destruction. This matters because it shows that the sequence is moving toward conclusion through defined actions. The result of this process is described in direct terms, emphasizing scale and consequence. The imagery used indicates that what has been gathered is now subject to outcome. The sequence has moved from identification to separation, and from separation to execution. At this point, the system of control has been fully revealed. The lines of alignment have been clearly drawn, and the initial phase of judgment has begun. The progression is no longer building toward conflict, it is moving through it toward resolution. The next phase will expand this process further, introducing a series of events that bring the sequence closer to its final outcome. After the separation is established and the first phase of judgment is initiated, the sequence advances into what is presented as the final set of actions before the conclusion. Up to this point, the vision has unfolded through seals and trumpets, each introducing measured and structured consequences. Now, a new series is introduced, described as the last set of plagues. This matters because it indicates completion. What follows is not another stage of escalation, but the final execution of what has already been building. John sees 7 angels holding 7 plagues, described as the last, because with them the wrath of God is completed. The definition is explicit. This is not partial or ongoing, it is the finishing phase. The presence of the angels reinforces order and assignment. Each one carries a specific role, and together they represent a complete sequence. This matters because it confirms that the events are not random or reactive. They are structured, defined, and brought forward as the final stage of the process. Before the bowls are poured out, John sees those who had overcome the system associated with the beast standing beside what is described as a sea of glass mixed with fire. This detail connects back to the earlier throne room scene, where a similar surface was observed, but now it is described with an added element: fire. This change matters because it reflects progression. The environment has not remained static. It has developed in response to the unfolding events. Those standing there are holding harps and are described as singing a song that acknowledges the works and ways of God as just and true. This is not introduced as emotional expression, but as recognition of what has taken place. The content of the song emphasizes that all nations will come and recognize what has been revealed through the sequence. This matters because it shows that the events have produced visible and undeniable outcomes. After this, the temple in heaven is opened again, and the 7 angels come out, carrying the plagues. They are dressed in clean, bright garments, and golden sashes are wrapped around their chests. This presentation emphasizes readiness and function. They are not introduced gradually. They emerge prepared to act. One of the 4 living creatures then gives them 7 golden bowls filled with the wrath of God. This transfer is direct. The bowls are not symbolic objects waiting to be interpreted. They are containers of what is about to be released. At this moment, the temple is filled with smoke from the glory of God and from His power. No one is able to enter the temple until the 7 plagues are completed. This detail is critical. It establishes a boundary. Once this phase begins, it will not be interrupted or accessed from within. This matters because it reinforces finality. The process has reached a point where it must run its full course without interference. A voice then comes from the temple, instructing the 7 angels to go and pour out the bowls onto the earth. This command initiates the final sequence. Unlike the seals and the trumpets, which introduced effects and stages with intervals and interruptions, the bowls represent a more direct and concentrated release. The preparation is complete, the instruction is given, and the sequence is ready to begin. At this point, everything that has been established authority, conflict, separation, and initial judgment leads into this final phase. The bowls are not introducing a new direction. They are concluding what has already been set in motion. The progression is no longer building. It is now moving toward completion. With a command given from the temple and the 7 angels prepared, the final sequence begins without delay. Unlike the earlier phases, where seals and trumpets introduced measured and partial effects, the pouring of the bowls produces immediate and direct consequences. The previous pattern of limitations, as affecting only 1/3 of the earth or its systems, is no longer present. This matters because it signals that restraint has been removed. What follows is not gradual escalation, but concentrated execution of what has already been established. When the first angel pours out his bowl onto the earth, The effect is immediate and targeted. Harmful and painful sores break out on those who bear the mark of the beast and who worship its image. This is not a general condition affecting all people. It is specific and directed toward those who align themselves with the system previously described. This matters because it reinforces the separation established earlier. The distinction between those marked by the Lamb and those marked by the beast is no longer symbolic. It now determines who is affected by the consequences being released. The second angel pours out his bowl into the sea, and the result is total transformation. The sea becomes like the blood of a dead body, and every living thing in the sea dies. Unlike the second trumpet, which affected only a third of marine life, this event is complete. There is no partial limitation. This matters because it shows that the sequence has moved beyond measured impact into total effect within the domain being addressed. The sea, which was previously disrupted, is now entirely altered. The third angel pours out his bowl into the rivers and springs of water, and they also become blood. This continues the pattern of total impact. Fresh water, which had previously been made bitter under the third trumpet, is now fully transformed. At this point, the essential sources of water, both salt and fresh, have been affected completely. This matters because it removes any remaining distinction between partial disruption and total consequence. The system of life support is being directly addressed. Following this, an angel associated with the waters speaks, acknowledging that these judgments are just because they correspond to what has already taken place. The reasoning is clearly stated. Those who had shed blood are now receiving blood in return. This establishes a direct connection between past actions and present consequences. This matters because it confirms that what is happening is not arbitrary. The outcomes are aligned with prior events and behaviors. The fourth angel then pours out his bowl on the sun, and it is given power to scorch people with intense heat. The effect is again direct and personal. People are burned by the heat, but instead of responding with correction or acknowledgement, they continue in opposition. This reaction is consistent with what was observed earlier after the sixth trumpet. Even under direct and escalating consequence, the expected response, change, does not occur. This matters because it highlights a pattern of resistance that persists regardless of intensity. At these days, 4 bowls have been poured out, each producing immediate and total impact within its domain. The progression is clear. Targeted physical affliction, total destruction of the sea, total transformation of fresh water, and direct environmental impact through intensified heat. The structure remains ordered, but the effects are no longer limited. The sequence has fully transitioned from measured warning to unrestricted consequence, and the next bowls will not expand. The pattern will intensify it further, bringing the system itself closer to collapse. As the sequence continues, the pouring of the 5th bowl introduces a shift from environmental and physical impact to direct disruption of the system of control itself. Up to this point, the bowls have affected individuals, natural resources, and environmental conditions. Now, the focus turns toward the seat of authority established earlier through the beast. This matters because the consequences are no longer only affecting those within the system, they're now targeting the system's foundation. When the 5th angel pours out his bowl on the throne of the beast, the result is immediate darkness across its domain. This is not described as a gradual dimming or partial reduction of light, but as a complete disruption affecting the area associated with the beast's authority. The effect is both environmental and psychological. People are described as being in anguish, gnawing their tongues because of pain. This detail reinforces that the consequences are not only external but are being experienced internally and continuously. Despite the response remains unchanged. Those affected do not turn away from their actions. Instead, they continue in opposition, refusing to acknowledge what is taking place. This is consistent with the pattern already established under previous phases. Even when the system they aligned with begins to fail at its core, the reaction is not correction but persistence. This matters because it shows that the conflict has reached a level where response is no longer influenced by consequence. The alignment has become fixed. The 6th bowl then introduces another critical development, shifting the focus from internal collapse to external preparation. The bowl is poured out on the great river Euphrates, and its water is dried up. This is not presented as a natural occurrence, but as a direct action with a defined purpose. The drying of the river creates a pathway, preparing the way for kings from the east. This matters because it introduces movement and positioning. The sequence is no longer only about consequence, it is preparing for a final confrontation. At the same time, John describes seeing 3 unclean spirits coming out of the mouths of the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. These spirits are described as performing signs and going out to the rulers of the earth, gathering them together. This introduces coordinated influence. The gathering is not random, it is directed. The purpose is clearly stated to assemble for a battle at a specific place. This matters because it shows that the opposition is not passive. It is actively organizing itself in response to what is unfolding. The location of this gathering is identified as Armageddon. The name is given directly, marking the place where this assembly occurs. This is not described in symbolic or unclear terms. It is presented as a defined point of convergence. This matters because it anchors the sequence in a specific moment and place where the conflict will reach a visible and concentrated form. At this point, several elements are operating simultaneously. The system of the beast is experiencing internal collapse through darkness and disruption. At the same time, external forces are being gathered and positioned for confrontation. The alignment that was previously established is now being organized into action. This creates a convergence between consequence and response. The sequence is no longer only unfolding, it is being drawn together. And with everything now positioned, the final step will not introduce another preparation. It will bring the sequence into its decisive moment. With the system already destabilized, the force is gathered, and the alignment fully defined, the sequence reaches its final stage. Up to this point, each bowl has intensified the consequences and prepared the conditions for what is about to happen. Now, the 7th bowl is poured out, and instead of introducing another isolated effect, it triggers a series of outcomes that bring multiple elements of the sequence together. This matters because it is no longer about escalation, it is about completion. When the 7th angel pours out his bowl into the air, a loud voice comes from the temple, from the throne, declaring, "It is done." This statement is direct and final. It does not describe a process, it announces a completed state. This matters because it marks the end point of the sequence that began with the opening of the scroll. Everything that has been unfolding leads to this declaration. Immediately following this, there are flashes of lightning, rumblings, thunder, and a massive earthquake, unlike anything previously described. The scale is emphasized. This is not another event within the sequence. It is a culmination that affects the entire structure of the earth. The great city is split into 3 parts, and cities of the nations collapse. This indicates that the impact is not localized, it is global. The systems that were previously stable are no longer able to hold their structure. At this point, a specific system is brought into focus, Babylon. It is described as being remembered before God, indicating that its role within the sequence has been significant and is now being addressed directly. Babylon is associated with influence, power, and widespread effect across nations. The consequence that follows is not gradual. Declinate is direct collapse. This matters because it shows that the system that supported and amplified the authority of the beast is now being removed. The effects continue to expand. Every island flees, and the mountains can no longer be found. These descriptions emphasize total disruption of the physical world. What was once stable and identifiable is no longer present in its previous form. This matters because it reinforces that the sequence has moved beyond partial impact into full transformation of the environment. Large hailstones fall from the sky, each described as extremely heavy. The impact is again direct and unavoidable. Despite this, the response from those affected remains consistent with what has been observed before. Instead of recognition or change, there is continued opposition. This detail is critical. It confirms that even at the final stage, the pattern of response has not changed. At this point, the structure that was introduced earlier in the sequencia system of control, the alignment of individuals, and the progression of events has reached its conclusion. The authority declared earlier has now been enforced through direct outcome. The systems that opposed it have been dismantled, and the environment itself has been altered in the process. The sequence that began with the opening of the seals has now moved through its final phase. The bowls have been poured out, the system has collapsed, and the declaration has been made. What remains is not another stage of escalation. It is the resolution of everything that has been set in motion. After the seventh bowl is poured out and the declaration it is done is made, the sequence does not immediately end. Instead, John is shown the detailed outcome of what has just taken place, focusing on the collapse of the system identified earlier as Babylon. Up to this point, Babylon was introduced as a central structure of influence, connected to power, control, and the spread of its practices across nations. Now, the vision shifts from announcement to explanation, showing how that system falls and what that fall actually means in practical terms. John is carried to a vantage point where he sees the symbolic representation of the system as a woman seated on a scarlet beast, full of names associated with opposition and control. The description is structured and intentional, presenting her as adorned with wealth and influence, holding a cup filled with what is described as the result of her actions. This matters because it shows that the system is not only powerful but also attractive and influential, drawing others into participation. However, the explanation that follows makes clear that this system is not stable. The same structure that supports it eventually turns against it. The beast and the allied powers are described as turning on the woman, stripping her of her position and bringing about her destruction. This is not gradual decline, it is internal collapse. This matters because it shows that the system does not fall from external attack alone, but through a breakdown within its own structure. The fall of Babylon is then announced in direct terms. It has become a place of ruin, abandoned, and emptied of its previous function. The consequences are described in layers. Kings who were associated with it observe its fall and react with fear, recognizing that what once appeared stable has been removed. Merchants who depended on its structure also react, not only because of its collapse, but because their own position was tied to it. This introduces an economic dimension, showing that the system affected trade, wealth, and distribution. The description continues by listing the types of goods that are no longer moving resources and even human lives. This detail is important because it shows the extent of the system's reach. Its collapse is not limited to political or religious influence. It affects multiple layers of society. The loss is not abstracted as measurable and visible. At the same time, a different response is described from another perspective. Those aligned with the authority established earlier are instructed to recognize the fall as just. This introduces a contrast in reaction. While those connected to the system respond with loss and fear, others respond with acknowledgement that the outcome is consistent with what had been established throughout the sequence. An angel then performs a symbolic action, casting a large stone into the sea and stating that the fall of Babylon will be final and irreversible. This reinforces that what has taken place is not temporary. The system will not rebuild or recover. Its removal is complete. The absence of sound, music, work, and daily activity is emphasized, showing that its function has ended entirely. At this point, the system that supported the structure of opposition has been fully removed. Its influence, reach, and activity have all come to an end. The collapse that was introduced during the seventh bowl is now explained in full detail, showing both how it happened and what it affected. The sequence has moved from disruption to removal, and now, with the system gone, the focus shifts to what follows after its absence. With the system of Babylon removed and its influence no longer active, the sequence transitions into its final phase. Up to this point, the vision has shown conflict, escalation, separation, and judgment. Now, the focus shifts to what remains, after those processes are completed. This matters because the conclusion is not only about what has ended, but about what continues. John describes a response in heaven that follows the fall. A large multitude is heard acknowledging that salvation, glory, and power belong to God, and that the judgments carried out are true and just. This is not presented as emotional reaction, but as recognition of outcome. The system that produced widespread influence and opposition has been removed, and the response confirms that this result is consistent with everything that has been established throughout the sequence. The scene then introduces what is described as a union, referred to as a marriage between the Lamb and those who are aligned with him. The individuals involved are described as prepared, clothed in fine linen, representing their actions and identity. This is not introduced as symbolic language without context. It represents a final state of alignment and confirmation of position. This matters because it shows that the sequence concludes not only with removal of opposition, but with establishment of a defined relationship. The focus then returns briefly to conflict, but this time in its final form. A figure appears, described as riding a white horse, identified as faithful and true, and acting with authority. The description is structured, emphasizing clarity of role, judgment, and action. The forces that had been gathered earlier are now confronted directly. The outcome is immediate and decisive. The beast and the false prophet are captured, and the remaining opposition is defeated. This is not a prolonged battle. It is a resolution. This matters because it confirms that the conflict that was building throughout the sequence reaches a clear and final endpoint. Following this, the sequence presents what happens after opposition is removed. The dragon, previously identified as the source of influence behind the system, is bound and prevented from continuing its activity for a defined period. This introduces a condition where the source of deception is no longer active. This matters because it changes the environment completely. The conditions that allowed the earlier sequence to unfold are no longer present. The final scenes show a state where judgment is completed and outcomes are assigned. Those aligned with the authority established earlier are shown to continue, while those not aligned face the consequences already defined. The description remains consistent with the pattern seen throughout the vision. Actions lead to outcomes, and alignment determines position. At this point, the sequence reaches its conclusion. What began with a man in exile receiving a series of visions has moved through structured steps: seals, trumpets, conflict, and final judgment. Each phase is built on the previous one, leading to a complete and ordered outcome. The system of opposition has been removed, the authority has been established, and the results have been defined. Now, before we close, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment telling me where you are watching from and what time it is. And also, after following this entire sequence step by step, do you believe these events are still in the future or already unfolding? This is the full progression of what John recorded on Patmos, presented step by step as it was described. And now the question remains with you.